As a former UK carp angling champion, a match angler with many big money match finals under my belt, we're here today at the fantastic Barston Lakes to show you some little tricks and tips that I've transferred from my carp angling over to my match and coarse fishing. These methods have really helped me catch some fantastic weights up and down the country on venues just like Barston. The first thing I would like to touch on is feature finding. I find it absolutely imperative to find out what you are fishing on. There's no point in turning up to a lake, finding out that so-and-so won a match at 65 metres, you turn up, chuck blind at 65 metres. You don't understand what you are actually chucking on. So number one for me is do some leading around. Find out exactly what is on that lake bed. Is it silt? Is it gravel? Is it a nice clean spot? Is there some tree in there that you don't know about? For me, it's a massive part. When you're chucking out into the lake and you'll stop watching for 20 minutes a chuck sometimes, it's important to understand what you're fishing on. If you're chucking blind and you end up in a deep bed of silt, your hook bait could be masked, your flatbed feeder, banjo type feeder could be masked in that silt, and you're just getting an odd liner, an indication thinking it's going to go, and it doesn't materialise. Time's up, you wind in, you repeat the process. And what it is them fish are rooting but can't find that hook bait of yours. So it's imperative to understand the substrate you are fishing on and making sure it's clean to present that bait. I find it's important to use quite a heavy lead. This one is 1.5 ounces. I want to make sure that when I'm dragging back that lead, that I understand what is on the bottom of the lake bed. If it's really hard to pull and quite tough, that might be silt. That might be caution. When you're chucking your flatbed feeder into that, that's when it could submerge. If it's nice, tapped, maybe quite hard, getting loads of vibrations on the rod tip, could be gravel, could be stone, a nice area to present in that bait, the fish can find it nice and easy, which is key for them quick bites. If you are faced with a really deep silty bottom and you cannot find some clean ground to fish on, when I'm carp fishing, I tend to lengthen my hook lengths so that it's presented nicely on top. Even if the lead penetrates the silt, I've got a nice presentation on top of that silt. Hybrid type feeders, solid bags can bury in the silt, and that can be a problem for the fish to find. How do I transfer that over to the match side? Quite simple. Refine down, finer hook lengths, smaller hooks, a nice sinker with a nice small PVA bag. Again, if that lead penetrates the silt, we'll lay on top and offering that hook bait on top of that nice neat pile. Same amount what you get on a hybrid flatbed method type feeder, but just that nice pile and that hook bait sat proud above the deep silt, ready for that fish to take. If you are fortunate enough to find that nice clean gravel or firm clay silt, then I opt for a solid bag in my carp fishing. Everything is inside the bag, the lead, the hook bait, everything is there. It's presented nice, quick and easy with a nice neat pile of bait around for the fish to find quickly. Moving that onto the match side, this is where it comes into your method type feeders. Nice neat pile of bait, easy access for the fish for that quick bite. It's worth pointing out as well that I've learned something from my carp side and transferred over, is I actually use a 6-inch hook length on a method. I find this is a big edge for me. When you get them carp feeding, they don't always nose right down into the bait. They can be hovering above. And as you can see, the transfer of that hook length is much higher up than if you use a 2 or a 3-inch hook length. And then big old wise carp don't always come right down into nose into the feed. The next thing I want to talk about is the use of liquids. I still feel that match anglers think it's a gimmick to use liquids. I can assure you, within my carp fishing, I use a lot of liquids. It plays a massive part in my armoury. Taking Barston for example, carp anglers will glaze their boilies a few days, a week before they're coming here, so that when they're putting that bait into the water, the liquids are infusing out of the bait and attracting more and more fish. The water is very coloured. The more smell you can get into your bait, the more fish that you can pull into it. Moving that over onto the match side, we can infuse our pellets with some fish oil. Again, a couple of days before, 3 weeks before, week before, have a play, see what works best for you. If either side of you are using bland old pellets and you've got liquid leaking out of your pellets, you're going to pull and attract more fish into your swim, giving you those extra bites. Something else I'd like to talk about is hook baits. On my specimen carp fishing, I like to use a lot of wafters. And the reason for this is when you're spreading the bait around and you're fishing for individual big fish, the picking an individual boilie up, and I like a wafter on a bigger hook negates the weight of the hook and flies back into the fish's mouth. When you come to prolific places like Barston Lakes, I actually swap over to a sinker. We do a fantastic range of sinkers in all different sizes, and when we draw them really good pegs and you're just fishing for carp, I personally like to single out a 10mm. Don't want skimmers picking up a smaller hook bait and being a nuisance on that day. I like a big 10mm bait, visual to the fish, but with it being a sinker, it stays central in that pile of bait, ready for that quick bite. Whilst we're on the subject of hook baits, another great little tip for you is applying some haze to the hook baits itself. I like to prepare these over several weeks so that you're adding a little bit of it at a time and the hook baits are drawing in that attraction. So when it is out in the lake, it's continually leaking off that trail and smell, and that fish can hone in again to another focal point, which is your hook bait. Another fantastic tip I have is paste wrapped pellets. Now in my carp fishing, I wrap paste around boilies. In my barbel fishing, I've wrapped paste around pellets and boilies on the river. It's been a fantastic edge. Even feeding an odd bit of paste has been brilliant. It's one thing I don't see on this match side is wrapping paste on pellets on that bomb line. Loose feeding regular, it's a great tactic, especially here at Barston. But giving you that extra edge, paste wrap pellets, the home straight into that bait. Our Pro Paste is really sticky if you want it to be. We can make it firm, we can make it sloppy, but it still has that binding properties to go around that hook bait. Chucking that into the lake, some fantastic attraction. One of the most effective ways of drawing lots of fish into your swim when carp fishing is the use of the spom. How do we replicate this in match fishing? We can use a bait 'em up feeder. Again, fishing at range, trying to draw lots of fish into the swim. Massive quantity of bait cast out at range, volumes of fish coming into your peg. Once you've had that initial burst on a hybrid feeder, method feeder, bomb and pellet line, you need to get a quantity of bait later on in the match. Bait 'em up feeder is perfect for that and replicates this. But look at that for an absolute stunner. What a way to end a fantastic session. I hope you enjoyed the tips and tricks we've shared today. Thanks for watching.